I wasn't supposed to stay with her. Not really. But when my parents flew out to visit my sister abroad, and my summer sublease fell through at the last minute, my mom said, "Just call Michelle. She's got the space. She won't mind." Michelle, my aunt. Or at least that's what I always called her growing up. She wasn't blood, just my uncle's ex-wife. But they'd stayed on good terms, and she'd stayed part of the family. I hadn't seen her in over 3 years, not since I left for college. I remembered her vaguely as quiet, graceful, with that sort of calm presence that made even a crowded room feel still. So when I texted her, not really expecting anything, her reply was immediate. "Of course. Spare keys under the mat. I'll be home around 6. The house looked the same. White brick, 2 stories, ivy creeping along one side. But the energy felt different. Warmer, slower, the kind of place where time moved quietly. I let myself in and dropped my bag near the stairs. The air smelled like vanilla and something herbal, maybe eucalyptus. Sunlight stretched through the windows in wide stripes. It didn't feel like a house that expected guests. When I heard the front door open behind me, I turned, and there she was. Michelle stood in the doorway, keys still in hand, sunglasses pushed into her hair. She wore loose beige pants, a tucked-in linen blouse, and flat sandals. Her hair was pulled into a casual knot, a few strands falling loose around her face. She looked older, sure, but not tired, not distant, just sharper, quieter. She smiled slowly. "Wow." I shifted my weight. "Hey, you're taller." She laughed lightly, closing the door behind her. "I mean, I knew you'd grow up, obviously, but not into a giant." "I'm 6 feet, I said. "Feels like more." There was a beat of silence. Not awkward, just new. She stepped forward and gave me a one-armed hug, warm and brief. "Welcome back." We settled quickly. She showed me the guest room upstairs, the bathroom, the kitchen. None of it had changed much. She made tea while I unpacked a little. We talked. About nothing. About everything. The conversation moved easily, like slipping into water that wasn't too cold. Over dinner, grilled chicken, salad. Wine she said she only opened for good company. We caught up properly. She asked about school, I asked about work. She ran a small online business now, curated vintage clothes and home pieces. Worked from home. Liked the quiet. "It's been peaceful," she said, tucking her legs under her at the dining table. "I needed that after the divorce." "You're still close with Uncle Mike?" She nodded. "We talk sometimes, but I think we both knew it was time." I didn't push. She didn't offer more. After dinner, I helped clean up. She poured another glass of wine and turned on some soft instrumental music. The lights dimmed. The night settled. Felt safe. Around 10, I said I'd head up to shower. She nodded, sipping her wine. "Towels are in the cabinet. Take your time." The bathroom was clean, almost minimalistic. A faint citrus scent lingered on the air. I let the water run hotter than usual, trying to wash off the subtle weight of the day. When I stepped out of the shower, towel around my waist, I froze. The hallway was quiet, but there was a soft creak. Someone had just walked past. I opened the door slowly. Michelle was standing at the other end of the hallway, a glass in her hand, wearing a deep gray robe tied neatly at the waist. Her hair was looser now, falling over one shoulder. She didn't look surprised to see me, just paused. We looked at each other. She tilted her head slightly. "Didn't mean to scare you." "You didn't." She held my gaze for half a second longer than usual, then smiled faintly and turned toward her room. "Sleep well," she said. I nodded, and then she disappeared behind the door. I stood there for a while, still in the hallway, the steam fading from my skin, the towel clinging slightly to my hip. The house had gone still again. But something felt different now. A shift. A signal I didn't fully understand. When I finally went back to the guest room and lay down, I didn't fall asleep right away. I kept replaying the moment she looked at me. It wasn't inappropriate. It wasn't suggestive. But it wasn't casual either. The next morning was quiet. I woke up later than I expected, the sunlight already stretching across the guest room rug in wide gold stripes. I could hear the soft sound of kitchen cabinets below, the occasional clink of dishes and music, low jazz, barely audible. I pulled on a t-shirt and stepped downstairs. Michelle was at the stove in a light robe, this time powder blue, loosely tied. Her hair was up again, messier now, like she hadn't tried to tame it. The sleeves of the robe were rolled halfway up, and one of her legs peeked out casually through the side slit as she moved. She didn't look at me right away. "Coffee's fresh," she said without turning. "Cups on the left." I nodded and grabbed a mug. The smell filled the space between us, warm, dark, rich. She slid 2 eggs from the pan onto a plate and set it in front of me at the island. "Eat," she said simply. We sat together at the island in silence, the kind that isn't uncomfortable, just shared. "You always this domestic?" I asked, smirking. She sipped her coffee. "When I feel like it. Other days it's cold cereal and takeout." We talked lightly, about the neighborhood, how quiet it had gotten, about the plant she kept forgetting to water, about my lack of groceries. "By the way," she said, setting her mug down, "I have a shelf that's loose in the laundry room. I meant to fix it last week, but the screws keep sliding." "I can take a look," I said. She nodded. "After breakfast." I followed her down the hallway after we finished eating. The laundry room was small but spotless, white walls, wood shelves, a faint lavender scent in the air. She pointed to the shelf above the washer. A screwdriver sat on the counter already. "You came prepared," I said. "I live alone," she replied. "I fix what I can, or I find someone who can." I adjusted the screws, braced the corner, and tested the weight. She stood nearby, watching, arms crossed over her robe. One hip leaned lightly against the doorway. I tried not to glance, but I could feel her eyes on me. "You're good with your hands," she said softly. I hesitated just for a second. "It's basic," I replied. "Nothing special." Her voice didn't change. "Still, I like that." I didn't look up. The silence that followed wasn't long, but it settled deep. When I finished, she stepped forward, reaching past me to test the shelf herself. Her shoulder brushed mine, just slightly. Not intentional, maybe, or maybe it was. "Sturdy," she said. I nodded. "You're safe from collapsing laundry baskets now." She smiled, but didn't move away immediately. "You've changed a lot, you know?" "How so?" "You used to blush every time someone looked at you too long." "I still might," I said. "You're just not looking long enough." She laughed softly, low, warm, private. And then, finally, she stepped back. That afternoon passed quietly. I worked on my laptop in the guest room while she answered phone calls in the dining room. The house felt suspended in time, wrapped in filtered light and the occasional click of her footsteps on the wood floor. In the early evening, I found her reading on the couch, one leg folded under her, glasses perched low on her nose. The robe had been replaced with a soft knit top and lounge pants. Her bare feet curled against the cushion, a blanket tucked around her waist. "You hungry?" she asked. "A little. There's pasta and red wine. I'll cook if you keep me company." "Deal." Dinner was quieter than the night before, but heavier somehow. The wine loosened the air, made everything a little softer around the edges. She asked me about the last girl I dated. I asked her when she last let someone stay over. We didn't lie, but we didn't tell the whole truth either. After dinner, we moved to the couch. One lamp lit the room, casting gold along the walls. She turned on a movie, something slow, nostalgic. I barely watched it. We shared the blanket, not touching, but close. Her voice broke the quiet. "You're not the same kid who used to sneak cookies out of my pantry." "No," I said. "I'm not." She turned her head toward me. "I see that now." I didn't know what to say, so I didn't. The movie ended, and neither of us moved to turn off the screen. She stood eventually, stretching. Her shirt lifted slightly at the hem, revealing a sliver of skin before she pulled it back down. "I'm going to shower," she said. I nodded. She paused at the hallway, glancing back at me. "If I'm not asleep," she said, "come say good night." Then she disappeared down the hall. I sat still for a long time, and when I finally stood, I wasn't sure whether I was going to bed or to her door. It was just after 11 when I finally got up. The house had gone still, the kind of quiet that felt deliberate, like it was holding its breath. I walked barefoot down the hallway, my hand grazing the wall. The soft carpet muffled each step. A sliver of light leaked from beneath her door. I hesitated. Maybe she'd already fallen asleep. Maybe she hadn't meant it the way I thought. But my hand lifted anyway. I didn't knock. The door was already slightly ajar. I pushed it open gently. The room was dim, lit only by a bedside lamp casting a warm amber glow across the bed and walls. The curtains were drawn. The air smelled faintly of lavender and something sweet. And there she was. Michelle sat on the edge of the bed in a deep burgundy robe, tied loosely at the waist. Her legs were crossed, bare to the knee. Her hair was down now, falling over her shoulders. A book lay closed beside her. She looked up as I entered, but didn't look surprised. She just said quietly, "I thought you weren't coming." The words landed somewhere deep in my chest. I swallowed. "I wasn't sure if you meant it." Her lips curved slightly, not a smile. Something softer. "If I didn't, I wouldn't have left the door open." I stepped inside, closing the door behind me with a soft click. She didn't move, just watched. There was a long pause. Then her voice, low and calm, "Come here." I walked toward her. She didn't rise. She didn't reach for me. She just looked up, meeting my eyes fully now, the weight of her gaze heavier than anything physical. "I wasn't sure if you'd notice," she said. "But you did." I nodded. "I did." She looked down briefly, her fingers playing with the edge of the robe's belt. "Do you remember the last time we were in the same house for more than a day?" "I was 17, I said. "You barely looked me in the eye back then. You weren't wearing a robe back then." She laughed quietly, shaking her head. "You've always been observant." Silence settled again, full and warm. Then she asked, still not breaking eye contact, "So what happens now?" I took a breath. "That depends." "On what?" "On whether this is a mistake." She tilted her head. "Does it feel like one?" I didn't answer. She stood slowly, moving past me to the window. Her robe shifted slightly with each step, brushing her knees. She looked out into the night, just trees and dark sky, and spoke with her back to me. "I've been alone in this room a long time. I got used to it. I even liked it." She turned back, her voice softer now. "But the moment I saw you standing in that hallway last night, I knew it wouldn't feel the same again." I stepped closer. "You think I planned this?" She shook her head. "No. I think you felt it too." We stood like that for a moment, neither touching, just facing each other. "You're not my nephew," she said. "Not really. Not in the way that matters." "I know. You're a grown man. And you're a woman who left her door open. She nodded, slowly. Yes, I did. She walked back toward me, stopping just an arm's length away. I'm not going to do anything you'll regret, she said. I'm not here to regret anything. Her fingers brushed mine. Just once. Just enough to say it without saying it. The silence thickened. Then she sat back down on the bed and looked up at me again. You can stay, she said, or you can go. But if you stay, we don't pretend. I sat beside her. Not too close. Not touching. But present. She didn't speak again. Neither did I. The lamp cast a soft glow across her collarbone. The curve of her neck, the loose fall of her hair. I looked at her and she let me, fully, without flinching. After a while, she leaned back slightly, her palm resting on the comforter between us. I don't know what this means, she whispered. Me neither. But I know what it doesn't mean. What's that? That it's wrong. I nodded. And then we just sat there, letting the quiet speak. Letting the moment be exactly what it was. I didn't sleep in her room, but I didn't sleep in mine either. I sat in that chair across from her for what felt like hours. We didn't touch, we didn't speak much after that last exchange. But something between us had already shifted. Something so irreversible and quiet that neither of us dared say it out loud. Not yet. Eventually, I stood. She looked up. Leaving? I nodded. For tonight. Her voice was barely a whisper. Okay. But her eyes didn't follow me to the door. They stayed fixed on the floor. And I knew it wasn't indifference. It was something else. Something that mirrored what I felt in my chest. A heat that refused to burn out. When I reached the guest room, I didn't turn the light on. I sat on the bed in the dark, staring at the door I had just closed behind me. The silence of the house pressed in again, but now it felt alive. Like something had been awoken between the walls and wasn't going back to sleep. I laid down without changing. The bed felt colder than it had the night before. I barely slept. When I opened my eyes, it was already morning. The light creeping around the edges of the curtains was soft and golden, and the house was quiet again. Too quiet. I listened for footsteps, for dishes, for the kettle. Nothing. I got up and went down the hallway. Her door was open. The bed was made. No sound from the kitchen. I walked in barefoot and found her already there, at the counter pouring hot water into a teapot. Her robe was back on, this time a pale cream color. She hadn't tied it tightly. A simple tank top peeked from underneath, and her hair was loose, falling down her back. She turned when she heard me. Morning, she said softly, as if we hadn't just sat in that silence together all night. Hey, I said, my voice low from sleep and something else. She set a second cup beside the teapot. Chamomile. No milk, right? I nodded. We stood at opposite ends of the kitchen island for a moment, like two people who had once shared something forbidden and now didn't know the rules of the morning. She slid the cup toward me. I took it, fingers brushing hers lightly. She didn't pull away. I didn't sleep much, I said. Me neither. A pause. Her eyes flicked to mine and then stayed there. I thought maybe you'd come back. I thought about it. Her smile was sad, but not disappointed. That's probably what made it harder. I looked down at the cup. She leaned on the counter, her elbows resting on the edge, both hands wrapped around her own mug. I didn't mean for last night to happen, she said. I know. I didn't plan it. Not really. I didn't either. She took a slow sip of tea, eyes never leaving mine. But we let it happen. We did. Silence again. But not the kind that begged to be filled. The kind that already meant something. Do you regret it? She asked. No, I said. Do you? Her answer came slower. No. We stayed like that for a while. drinking tea, listening to the house breathe. The sun kept rising. The world kept moving. But neither of us did. I don't know what this is, I said finally, or what it's supposed to become. Neither do I, she said. But I'm not pretending it didn't happen. I nodded. Good. She set her mug down gently. Your parents come back next week, don't they? Yeah. You'll stay here until then? If you want me to. She looked at me, long and quiet, before answering. I do. She turned toward the sink and rinsed her cup. Her movements were slow, deliberate. She wasn't pushing me away. She wasn't pulling me closer. But she wasn't hiding anymore either. As I stepped out of the kitchen, she called after me. One more thing. I stopped and looked back. She didn't move from the sink. You don't have to knock. I blinked. What? She glanced over her shoulder, her expression calm, almost amused. If the door's open, it means I'm waiting. I didn't reply. I just nodded slowly, then walked away, heart pounding like I was hearing a language I hadn't known I could understand. That day passed in fragments. I stayed in the house. We talked in passing, soft, friendly, careful. But now every look, every movement, every brush of the hand carried weight. We didn't name it. We didn't label it. But it existed in full. Later that night, I stood at my door with my hand on the handle, staring across the hallway at hers. It was cracked open again, and the light was on.